The Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you by Rams On Demand, Seat Giant, Vibe 305, and RWO, Rams World Order. Now enjoy the show.
Down the middle, to the end zone, caught by Brandon Cooks. Shoot your arrows.
He picks. Nickel Roby Coleman
throws. Enzo caught, touchdown. Tyler Higbee. Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air and gives the Rams the lead. LaMarcus Joyner returns to the lineup with an interception in London. 35-30. Robert Woods, first down 20. 10-5. Touchdown. LA. No, it's Goff who keeps it. And Goff goes crashing into the end zone. Aaron Donald almost beat the football there and comes away with his third sack of the afternoon. Met immediately and sacked. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day. And he gets gobbled up. Savage has to eat it as Michael Brockers picks up the sack. He's decked by Ebu Tom. Picked off. Marcus Peters strutting his stump. Mark Barron the last 4 weeks has been a Pro Bowler.
Oh, it's picked off on the play by John Johnson.
After the throw, and we mentioned that is his 8th completed pass in his career.
Cousins sacked. Ndamukong Suh. Of all the guys, it's the rookie John Franklin Myers who knocks it out of Cousins' right hand. Todd Gurley, 20, 10, Gurley for MVP. Touchdown LA.
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. It's episode 157. I'm joined here by Alexis, Kraft, and we are going to have Tavon Coney, Notre Dame linebacker, draft prospect. He's coming on later on in the show. But we have a lot to talk about, and I know it's surprising because we literally recorded a podcast like 2 nights ago, but we couldn't resist. With all this free agency buzz going on, I'm pretty sure, Alexis, you agree with me. I mean, kind of wanted to throw this stuff out there, and we're going to be doing a little prediction game, I guess. Alexis gets a Rams cap number, and, the cap number that's right now, and, we are going to either, cut some players, get that cap space up, or we're going to not cut players, and, we'll just sign who we will, and, the goal is to stay underneath the cap, and I think you and I both can do it, so, yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
So, without further ado, the Rams, they have a total available cap number of $189 million, roughly $189 million, and you and I are obviously going to look to kind of extend that because, the Rams still, while they have some cap space, they don't have as much as you would like them to have for sure. Obviously, I think when you look at, their cap numbers in the past, or if you look at the Colts cap number, you kind of get a little jealous. There's not as much, room, and there's going to be some tough decisions made. Right now, for those of you who don't know, the Rams have roughly $32 million in cap space, and that is remaining with tons of free agents, mainly Ndamukong Suh and, obviously Roger Saffold, LaMarcus Joyner, restricted free agents like that, and, of course, Dante Fowler. So we'll get into it. What was your first course of action, when basically saving space or getting rid of space?
Well, we should probably mention, you and I haven't really talked about, we each made some decisions on who to keep and who to cut. And so I guess I'll go first, but the first guy that I released was Mark Barron. And that saved the Rams roughly about $7 million in cap space. I released Mark because he was really helpful to the Rams for a really long time. But, lately I just think he's become a bit expendable, and his age is getting up there. And I think, with a team like the Rams, who I believe have struggled in that kind of linebacking position, I just think it's time to maybe start fresh and move on from Mark.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I actually moved on from Mark Barron as well. And, the reason being if we were looking at a Rams cap value of maybe $60 million to start, I don't know if the Rams make a move like that. I don't know if they would release him. But, in this case, I don't know how much of a fit he is in this defense. I think Wade Phillips in year 3 is finally going to, get a taste for what is really his, what is going to be his defense, and what he's passing along to the next generation, whether that's an Aubrey Pleasant run defense or Joe Barry or somebody like that. So, I think, Mark Barron is kind of the way you have to go there. It's unfortunate, kind of an end of an era there. I mean, I remember when they traded and got him, but they kind of have to move on.
Yeah, I agree, unfortunately.
So the next one, who would you say that, you're going to move on from?
John Sullivan. I know that he was our starting center, but I think we've kind of struggled, and he struggled this year at the center position, and cutting him saves about $4,250,000 in cap space, and I just think it's time.
Yeah, Sully might end up retiring, but yeah, when you talk about $4 million or so in cap space, and the fact that he's kind of a liability on the offensive line, it's kind of a no-brainer. You kind of have to get rid of him. And, if you would like to come back for the veteran minimum and have a backup role, yeah, I'll take him on. But I can't trot him out there next year being the starter. I know this is the offensive line of the year, but a lot of the reason for the Rams' random struggles, quote-unquote random struggles, were because of John Sullivan. He's just not physically on the level of everyone else around him at this point in his career. So I think you do have to make that move. Sullivan and Barron. And then I'll tell you right now, I love Michael Brockers. Love him. But the Rams are going to have to find a way to save some money. And, he is a $10 million cap saving if they get rid of him. So I don't know if you did that, but I ended up moving on from Michael Brockers as well.
I actually kept Michael, but I have heard, a lot of people say that they think that he's going to be released, but I did choose to keep him.
Yeah, and, I can definitely see why. I mean, he's still an integral part of this defense. I think, if you don't bring back Ndamukong Suh, I think his role becomes even bigger. But, I think the Rams could end up going, not a full makeover, but they could go with a New England Patriot-like thing where, they sign guys and they let them go and they pay, the certain guys that they want to pay. But, I think that's something to monitor to see it, if this team ends up turning into that New England style model of the way they build their team.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's something that we're just going to, have to feel out and wait and see. But who's the next guy that you released?
Yeah, so the next guy I released was Mike Thomas. He's not even, $1 million against the cap, but, the fact of the matter is I don't see Thomas, his long-term future with the Rams. He suffered. He had a PED suspension. He suffered some injuries. He missed that entire year. And this was really the year for Mike Thomas not to get hurt. Because when you saw Cooper Kupp go down, obviously Reynolds got some balls thrown his way. But the Rams ended up signing Nick Williams. And he actually had footballs thrown his way as well. And he wasn't on the roster long, but that could have been Mike Thomas's spot and an opportunity to shine. And unfortunately, sometimes this is just a case of an injury kind of keeps you out of the long term plan or even the short term plan. And in this case, I think Mike Thomas, he is, of course, he's going to cost some money, and I think the Rams would move on, if not before the off season start, free agency starts. He's going to get cut in camp, I think.
Yeah. That's something I would probably agree with. He's not someone that I have down as cutting, but I agree with what you said. Then the next guy that I got rid of is Tanzel Smart, defensive tackle. He's a guy, he was only drafted 2 years ago, but the Rams are a team with a lot of depth in that defensive tackle position. Out of all the guys there, I felt that Smart was the best to get rid of, and it saves the Rams quite a bit of money. Actually, it would save them around $600,000, a little bit over that, to release him.
Yeah, it's not, obviously it's not a need, but I definitely agree with releasing Tanzel Smart. I was actually a little shocked he made the roster. I thought he had a terrible preseason, and then he kind of came in the year and was really just a reserve guy. So, I ended up doing the same thing as you. But moving on, we didn't just cut players the entire time. We did end up signing players, and I ended up going by bringing back Roger Saffold on a $6 million cap, value. It may seem a little crazy to people getting him for $6 million. I do think that's kind of a hometown discount, but I think it's definitely possible. And keep in mind, a cap hit isn't always what the final contract is. You could have a lot of guaranteed money there, something to sweeten the pot. I mean, Aaron Donald doesn't even have a cap hit in the 20s. It's like 17 million around that this year, which is fairly doable. So, that's just kind of my take. 6 million cap for Saffold, and I'm bringing him back.
I brought Saffold back as well. And wait, what did you bring him back for again, you said?
I brought him back for 6 million.
I brought him back for 7, so about the same. But yeah, I think he's someone who is still playing, at a high level, and someone who I would like to see, and I think a lot of people would like to see retire a Ram. And if you look at kind of the free agent market, he kind of makes more sense to bring back than to let go.
Oh, I totally agree. I looked at the guard market. I wasn't really impressed. I liked some of the depth guys, but not really anybody that can take over for Saffold. And in this class, like I've said, on the previous podcast, I really like Darrell Williams. He's not even in this draft class, and I feel like, operating under the fact that I thought he was in the draft class, I thought it was already a weak guard class, period. But now knowing that he's not in it, I just feel like this is an extremely weak guard class. I think you're going to see a lot of tackles that have to move to guard. But, I mean, I'm not banking on that, so I'm going to go Saffold, obviously. And then my next one was Ethan Westbrooks. Look, this is a guy that, he's been in the rotation. He's been there since he came in as a, UDFA, and I think he adds value to the rotation, but I also think he can be a really good spot starter. And he has versatility. He can play end. He can play defensive tackle. So I like him. I'm keeping him, and I'm keeping him for 1,500. $1,500,000 for Ethan Westbrooks.
He's someone that I brought back as well, actually, for the same price. I like him a lot. Like you said, I think he adds value at that depth position, and someone who, if need be, can step up and start. So I think he's a good guy to keep around. The next guy that I'm going to bet that you brought back as well would be Dante Fowler Jr. Kind of a guy who we've talked about on previous podcasts that we absolutely think the Rams need to do whatever they can to keep him. And I brought him back for $12 million, which didn't hit, the cap too hard. We had the money to do it, and I think he's a guy who absolutely changes the defense, and a guy who last season stepped up and made big plays when we needed them most. And I think it's kind of a no-brainer to bring him back.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think when you look at Dante Fowler Jr., 25 years old, a lot to like there. Obviously speed rusher, and it may seem redundant because it wasn't long ago we were just talking about this, but I think Fowler you absolutely have to bring back. I tried to get Jadeveon Clowney on the bandwagon, but the fact of the matter is Jadeveon Clowney's going to get tagged from what it sounds like. So he's not really an option, and I wasn't going to spend a ton of money on somebody that wasn't really realistic. Because there's the Grady Jarretts of the world, and they want a lot of money. And to me, I just think, $12 million, $12 million for Dante Fowler, I think is doable. He could want up to 14, 15, and, I think I'd cap it at 15, but I think they can get him for 12, and that's what I'm going with here.
Yep. Yeah. Definitely a guy who I think most people would agree they want to come back. The next guy that I signed back was Ramik Wilson, who I think is very underrated and underappreciated, but deserves a lot more credit for what he can do. And I brought him back at $3 million. What do you think?
So you like him a lot more than I do, because I actually didn't re-sign him. I look at this draft and I'm like, well, there's a linebacker I'd like in the top 3 rounds, and there's a bunch of linebackers I'd consider in the bottom of the draft. So I think when you look at the fact that they have Littleton, obviously Kaiser's there. To me, I think you have to draft a linebacker, and there are going to be other guys added to the fray. Especially, Justin Lawler, who's playing inside backer, as well as Traven Howard, who is signed to a futures contract. So they have guys there, and so I avoided the linebacker position aside from Corey Littleton. So I didn't match your Ramik there, but I ended up giving Corey Littleton $5 million, probably a 5-5 deal where 5 years, $25 million. I think that's a fair deal. Now, he could command more, but I think right now, just off 1 year starting, I think $5 million per year for over 5 years is a good one.
Yeah, I actually brought Corey Littleton back as well for $5 million.
So we're on the same we're on the same page there.
Yeah. And then the only other linebacker that I brought back, the special teams guy, is Bryce Hager.
Yeah, I wanted to. I actually ended up signing a linebacker. Now I remember. It was actually Will Compton, who had familiarity with Coach Joe Barry, when he was the defense coordinator in Washington. And, I think this is somebody that can, play that special team role, can be a rotational linebacker. I just think he's going to be a lot more cheap than somebody like Hager or, Ramik Wilson. I do think those guys will get, because the thing is, when people are really quick to think, well, they're not really big on the Rams, you have to understand, just looking at when the Ravens won the Super Bowl, guys get plucked. It happens all the time. And even in that sense, where those guys are, the lesser of the bunch, I still could see a team signing him. I mean, just remember Cody Davis. He signs over $3 million for the Jacksonville Jaguars and ends up netting the Rams a 7th-round compensatory pick, which I don't think anybody expected. So I wouldn't be so sure that those guys are guarantees, and that's why I think Compton's cheaper. I'm going to go Compton.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I get what you're saying. And then another guy that I brought back, who I'm sure you did as well, CJ Anderson. I brought him back for $4 million, and I think he's a guy who definitely surprised a lot of people with his play towards the end of the Rams season and in the playoffs, and a guy who essentially I don't think we'd be in the Super Bowl without this year. So I bring him back. I think he's a good backup to Gurley and is going to get a lot of reps.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. For you, I think he accepts your deal. For me, I'm kind of on the fence whether he would accept $2.5 million per year, but I bring back CJ as well. Hopefully he accepts that value, but I definitely agree with you. Let Malcolm go and try and get a starting job. I would, like we said on the podcast, rescind his restricted rights and make him an unrestricted free agent. Let him be, and sign Anderson. The reason for that, I think it works out for both parties. Malcolm Brown is a younger back who is going to be stuck behind Gurley for the rest of his career if he signs. C.J. Anderson's kind of at the end of his, I won't say he's at the end of his career, but kind of that weird, part where it's like when you start to see running backs tail off, except unless they're named Frank Gore. So I mean, that's kind of where I'm at, where I just feel like you bring CJ in for 2 more years, and then John Kelly can kind of take over that backup role. But yeah, I did the same thing with CJ Anderson. I also brought back Dominic Easley on the veteran minimum. To me, this is probably his last opportunity. You throw him on that camp roster, let him earn a job. I thought he played pretty decently for moving out of position, a guy that played in the interior his whole career, and then he got moved to outside backer. So I think that's something to consider, and I think the Rams could end up doing that with Easley just because there's not really a ton of risk involved.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. I actually didn't end up bringing him back, but I mean, it's not someone that I feel that strongly about either way. I brought back, or actually a guy that I'm going to move now into someone, just a free agent that I signed was Matt Paradis, the center. And I signed him for $6 million, especially because I released Sullivan. I think Matt is a guy who obviously starts right away and adds a lot of strength to that O-line.
Yeah, so Matt Paradis I signed for $2 million more than you, so I guess we kind of, we fluctuate here. But the fact of the matter is this guy is like the best center in the NFL, if not one of them. I think, he's still under 30. I think it's a good move for the Rams. You get him on a 3-year, $24 million deal. I think, both parties win in that one. I think Paradis is, somebody, if you're going to release Brockers, you have to have a plan as to why you're releasing Brockers, because I kept this, I kept the cap space under what the Rams are projected to have, $4.1 million in draft allocation. So, draft picks do cost cap space, and so I did the math, and the 4.1 draft allocation, I factored that in and kept the Rams below that, and again, you're going to make that move. You have to bring in somebody. I'm bringing in Paradis for 8. You bring him in for 6. I think, either way, I think the Rams get better on the offense just off this signing.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. I think he'd be a great fit. And then the only other guy that I brought in as a free agent is Curtis Riley, the free safety out of the New York Giants. And I think he's a guy that adds good depth at the safety position for the Rams, especially because I didn't re-sign Joyner. And he's someone that you could get, I think relatively cheap.
Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't sign him, but I definitely don't have an issue with that move. I think he is somebody that can fit right in there as the third, defensive back, whether it be he could play the safety position, he can play the corner. Versatility is key, and I think he has a lot of that. Kind of a Swiss Army knife player, so I don't think it's a bad move at all. I picked up Troy Hill for another season, $1 million. It's that simple. He's been here for a while, and I think the Rams coaching staff likes him enough to bring him back again. It's he's not going to be too much, and again, you may be able to find somebody that's marginally better or better. But Troy Hill has been in this defense for 2 years now. I'm going to go with Troy Hill over a guy that might, just come in and be a little bit better and might not have that experience that Hill has under Wade.
Yeah, I agree with that. Hill's a guy that I questioned bringing back. I ended up not, but if I did, I think I'd bring him back for what you did.
Yeah, and then Blake Countess is another one that I added, $1 million. Problem is, it's hard to value these guys. I don't really think you can pay Blake Countess 2, 3, 4, but like $1 million I think is good. He could end up being the starting free safety, depending on how this offseason goes. So I think you get him for cheap, and I think that works for everyone except maybe Blake, because he is good enough to get more, but I don't know. This safety market has been really spotty, and I love the safeties in this draft class, and I'm sure the NFL does. So, we saw it last year, Trey Boston, Eric Reed. Eric Reed took a while, and we know, that whole collusion case had something to do with it, but Trey Boston took forever to sign for $2.5 million, and this is somebody that was 25, 26 years old, and he just had his best season. And it took all that waiting until eventually his former defensive coordinator, Steve Wilkes, got the Cardinals to sign him for $2.5 million. And I mean, that he was probably worth around $7 million, I would say, according to Spotrac. So that was a little weird, and that's kind of why I feel like getting somebody like Blake and letting Joyner go is like a no-brainer.
Yeah, I actually re-signed Blake for $3 million. I skipped over that by accident, but yeah, I agree. I would like to see him come back. I think he has starting potential.
And then, who did you sign next?
The only other guy that I signed is I brought back Morgan Fox for $2 million, just a depth guy.
Yeah, I gave Mo $1 million. I like Mo Fox a lot, and I raved about him last show, and I think he can fit right in there in that rotation. Him, Westbrooks, and then you have Sebastian Joseph Day, you have Donald, and I moved on from Sue and Brockers. So, who better to fill in there than a gap eater and an athletic one at that? And Danny Shelton, I gave him $7 million. I think this is someone that has played a lot better than people give him credit for. I know he was a really high pick, but the fact of the matter is he plays a position that's not really flashy. So the casual fans think he's a bust. But, I mean, I've watched this guy on film, and I think he's impressive. He may not be the best, but, as far as for the value, I think the Rams could get him for that, and I think they should. I mean, I think he'll help the run defense. I don't know how much, he'll help as a pass rusher. I don't think he's a bad pass rusher, but, I think he's going to be more of a run defender, and I think he solidifies that position in the middle, nose tackle, so... there you go. I think that's a good pickup. And then I had guys like, obviously Kadero Hodge. I'm a huge fan of his. Like what he brings to the table on special teams. I still think he could, play on offense if need be. Brought him back for the vet minimum, as well as Dominic Hatfield and return man JoJo Natson. Kevin Peterson, I gave $950,000 to. Somebody that I believe, coming off that, season-ending injury, I think he could, as long as he, gets fully healthy and has no setbacks, I think he could challenge for the fourth corner job. I think he's that good. Mm-hmm. I do like him more than Troy Hill. I liked him more than Sam Shields. And I felt like the Rams did, but the injury, unfortunately, was really, just bad timing. And obviously injuries are just, there's never a good time for injuries, but that was really not a good timing for the injury. And then I had Jordan Mills, right tackle from the Buffalo Bills, familiarity with Aaron Cromer, of course. And, this is a position where, if Havenstein goes down, there's going to be a lot of reshuffling and everything, but the Rams don't have, a legitimate backup right tackle. I mean, they have Noteboom who they could throw in there, but I don't know. I feel like, getting somebody like Mills for $1.5 million, I think makes sense. And then I think, signing somebody like Ryan Groy would make sense, but I ended up backing out when I went to basically submit this. And, I was considering Groy for a while. I feel like the mutual, they're both mutual in wanting him. Obviously, the Rams signed him to an offer sheet, and the Bills matched it a year ago. But I really like Matt Paradis. So I decided not to do that. And like we said earlier, you and I both picked Paradis, and I just feel like it's kind of redundant. I know Groy can play guard. I get that. But I like Blythe. I'm not about to throw away, Austin Blythe for, a bad last 4 games of the season when he was really good every other game. So, that's kind of where I am with all this. I think there's a lot to obviously like about it. I was able to finish with the Rams staying above the cap, above the draft allocation. And really, I think the Rams need to look at linebacker in the draft. I know people are going to be like, why didn't you, grab a legit linebacker? Why did you get, Tom Compton of all people? And, I'll say this right now. I didn't really like them for the value. I really like C.J. Mosley, but I don't want to pay C.J. Mosley $10 million when, think about this, if Corey Littleton signs a 1-year deal as a restricted free agent to kind of branch into what could be a long-term deal with the Rams, I mean, you're going to have to pay him that money. So I'm not really a fan of shelling out the dough for, Mosley, who I think is really good, but slowly but surely I've kind of, and he's not overrated, but, he's kind of, he doesn't do as much as many kind of give him credit for, including myself. I really, when I looked into it, I just don't really feel like, Mosley is like a game-changing type of player. And then I was looking, and obviously Denzel Perryman is a fit. He's obviously cheaper, but I wasn't really a fan of Denzel Perryman either. I don't feel like the production is really there to put him next to Littleton as a starter. So, I look at this draft and I think, obviously the guy that you're gonna hear in this podcast, Tavon Coney, I think, he's definitely somebody that could be an option. Khalil Hodge, Khalil Hodge of Buffalo, I think is another guy, and Terrell Hanks from New Mexico State, T.J. Edwards. I mean, there are guys out there, and to me, I couldn't justify spending a lot of money on linebackers when, I mean, the closest I came, Alexis, to actually getting a linebacker was Jake Ryan, because I feel like he'll be cheaper because of the injury, but at the same time, do you want a guy coming off that serious of an injury and just throw him in a new defense and to start him day one? Like, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. And he's someone that I brought up last podcast, who I would be comfortable bringing in for cheap, and someone who I think, if he heals correctly and gets back to where he was, is a great player. But I agree with you in the sense that I would like to see us draft a linebacker, in the first round. And I like all of those prospects that we've talked about a lot better than some of the free agent linebackers that I've seen. And I'm not going to be shocked at all if the Rams end up doing that.
Yeah, I'm not going to be shocked at all either. I think also, with the edge position, I think you could funnel somebody, and I've said this for 2 years now, I think you could funnel somebody like Samson Ebukam in an inside backer. I think he's athletic enough, and I think he's a little stiff on the edge, so, I don't think he has a ton of bend for my money, and I don't know if he's really going to get a ton better on the edge. So I feel comfortable paying, Dante Fowler, kind of resetting, your stance at, on the edge, moving Ebukam in at, inside backer next to Littleton, trying that out, and drafting somebody like Coney or Hanks or Hodge. And, those guys don't have to start day one, but they could be huge, 2 down, 3 down players, whatever. If you want to start him, cool, but, I mean, I would do that, because then you have Kaiser as well, and you kind of have a nice rotation there. Littleton's really your only guaranteed starter. You give Ebukam a shot, but, I don't think he's earned enough. I don't think he's done enough to earn, the type of praise he gets often, or how it's never, let's, consider upgrading, Ebukam, because, I mean, right now, the 4th-round pick the Rams traded up to get is considered a guaranteed bona fide starter. And I haven't seen enough to justify him starting for a 13-3 football team. I mean, I know that sounds crazy because they almost won the Super Bowl, but, I just look at it and I think maybe, the Rams, that's what they're missing. They're missing another edge piece. And, I think in this draft, when you have all the talent that's off the edge in this, I mean, obviously starting with Bosa, and then you go all the way down. You have guys like L.J. Collier, you have Carl Granderson, you have O'Shane Simmons, and Jalen Ferguson, obviously, and guys like that. So I'm not really comfortable, spending a ton of money on an edge guy aside from Clowney, and Clowney is going to be tagged. So I look at this and I'm like, I don't really like Ebukam so far. for what he's put out there. So I kind of feel like his athleticism, you can kind of move him over to linebacker, and then you get an edge guy, and then maybe you don't even get like a really big time edge guy. Maybe you just draft, somebody like Carl Granderson later on, and then you have a rotation with him and Trayvon Young, and of course everyone's favorite who's never taken a snap in the NFL, Ogbonnaya Okoronkwo. So I mean, they have guys like that, and that's kind of the thing where I feel like they continue to build this depth, and that's why last draft was huge, because people are going to forget the Okoronkwo's of the world. They're going to forget the fact that was a guy that they thought was going to be second, third round pick, went to the 5th round. And so they'll look at the 5th round valuation. They'll be like, oh, he has a 5th round label on him. He didn't play. So people are going to be really quick to forget what Okoronkwo can bring to the table. And I don't feel like edge is the biggest need because of that, because I do believe in Okoronkwo. And I think, if you get, an edge guy, I don't think you have to get the top guy. If Montez Sweat falls there, or somebody like that, then sure, you could make the argument to select him in the 1st round. But I don't know about you. I just think that's kind of my take, really. With that, I'd like to see Ibukam used in a more open role as an inside backer that can kind of run all over the field and make plays, use his athleticism. And find another pass rusher that may not be the go-to guy, but kind of the guy alongside, the Okoronkwos, the Trayvon Youngs of the world.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, and some of the guys that you mentioned, like I'll pronounce this wrong, I'm sure. Okoronkwo is a guy who people really like. Did I? I was like worried as I said that, but I actually released him. But
what?
What?
You released Okoronkwo?
I mean, I was looking at all that. It saved a lot of money, and I don't know. I'm not as big on that train as a lot of people, but
I'm not about to crown him, but I like him a lot, and he's got a lot of different maneuvers, and he's got an arsenal full of pass rushing moves where I don't feel like this guy will bust. I think at worst he's a 9 sack a year guy once he finally gets going.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's a guy that I don't think they're going to get rid of, but when we do these scenarios, I try and be as extra as I can with it, and try and be bold. And unfortunately, that involved me having to release him, but I don't think he'll get released.
Probably not. I can't imagine it. I mean, then again, they've done some crazy things, but no way will they release Okoronkwo. I just don't see it. I think that that kind of wraps that portion up. I mean, really, just in conclusion, I really like the safety class. I really like the linebacker class. I like the guys in the interior defensive line. But I still feel like somebody like Danny Shelton makes a lot of sense. And I feel like the value's there. And I feel like he kind of adds something that the Rams really haven't had. I mean, Brockers is a run defender, but you talk about the physical, muscle mass and what Danny Shelton is. I mean, he is monstrous. He's a giant human being. And that's not somebody that the Rams have had before. Well, recently. I mean, I believe Shelton's like, 330? I mean, he's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's kind of my thing. He's also 25 years old. So, you get him, you get him on a deal, and I think that's a good move. And, obviously this draft has a lot, and I like it a lot. So I'm not about to, he's 344 pounds. I'm not about to, sign Grady Jarrett $20 million. I mean, I like Grady Jarrett. I think the Rams, when I was doing this, Alexis, slowly but surely I felt like the Rams could still keep Sue. And they might, what they might end up doing is end up trading or releasing Brockers and keeping Sue. That's what they might do. I could actually see that. Because then you get some picks maybe for Brockers. You save. It wouldn't be $10 million if you traded them because you'd probably have to eat some of that. But I don't know. I think a lot of things can happen, and I know it's a 13-3 team that just lost the Super Bowl, but this is another offseason yet again that could be really exciting, really crazy, dysfunctional, kind of make no sense, but we could see a lot of crazy stuff happen.
I agree. I think there's a lot of different scenarios that can happen that wouldn't be surprising. We just got to wait and see.
Yeah, we do. So do you have anything else, or are we going to send this over to Tavon Coney?
I think we should send it over to Tavon.
All right. Well, hey, we really appreciated Tavon coming on. He was awesome. And you guys have to listen to find out, but he actually had an interesting thing to reveal. And you guys are going to like it. We're just not going to spoil it. So here is Notre Dame linebacker Tavon Coney. All right, guys, joining us on the Downtown Rams podcast, he's Notre Dame's linebacker, and he's coming in the NFL draft. Tavon Coney, how's it going, man? Thanks for joining the show.
Going good. Can't complain.
I like it. And obviously you've been really busy and everything because you're preparing for, one of the biggest moments of your life. With that being said, it all starts, somewhere. What made you want to play the game of football?
Just growing up, back at home, just being able to, play football just kind of took me away from the outside world, and just that was the most time I had fun, in my life. So, I just continued to play, and, to this day, I love it the most.
That's awesome. And, you've certainly had a really productive career, and you committed to Notre Dame. And as I'm a huge Irish fan, so I guess something that, I would like to know is why was Notre Dame the place that you decided you wanted to play football?
Notre Dame was truly a special place, and I felt that the first day, I went there and visited, and just great people, great support staff. It's just really special. The feeling I got versus all the other visits I took, it was nothing like it. Just having a group of staff who's going to push you on out the field to become a better man, a better football player, a better father in the future. You just couldn't ask for more. Just having that pedigree, behind a degree, and just all those types of things, and great coaching staff, and stability with the head coach. It was an overall great program and something I wanted to be around.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it really is a special place, and definitely agree with the pedigree thing too as well. And Brian Kelly is, as I'm sure you know, just an absolutely incredible guy, and I'm sure it was probably really special to play for him.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's a guy who's been around for a long time, seen a lot, and you can learn a lot from just being a young guy coming in at 17 years old. There was a lot that he was able to teach me, about life, about the game of football. Just having a guy who has that much wisdom, it was really special spending 4 years around him.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, obviously growing up, you probably watched some football growing up, and, sometimes you have an idol or two that you kind of want to, look up to and become. Was there anybody that you watched, growing up in the NFL that you looked at them and you're like, that's the guy I want to mold my game after?
Growing up, I watched Ray Lewis. He was very special. But, most of my life I was a running back. So I looked up to LaDainian Tomlinson. It was just I was able to tell how much he loved football and, how he wanted to be great. And, that was kind of my motivation, that whatever position I ended up playing, I wanted to be the best at. I wanted to continue to work hard because of all the many people in the world that's trying to do something I'm trying to do. I just knew I had to work really hard. So those two guys were huge motivation, for just wanting to be great at whatever position I played.
Right. And I guess that kind of, brings us into, when you're wanting to be great. And I just want to know, at the Senior Bowl, when you went into the Senior Bowl, what's something that you told yourself going in, and how was that experience like for you, to be there around all those prospects and all those teams?
Uh, I mean, it was awesome to be around that type of experience. At Notre Dame you play top athletes each and every week. But just to be able to be around a lot of special guys who've had great careers like myself, and be around the coaching staff such as the Raiders and the 49ers, it was just a really special experience. Truly an honor and appreciation to all your hard work that you've put in until that point. So I was really happy to be able to go out there and just have fun playing football and, just embrace the moment and the grind and just continue to just put my head down and work extremely hard.
Yeah, certainly. And, it's funny because obviously you have scouts, you have fans, you have coaches, all alike that are watching you. And while it is entertainment, it's also, helping you get to the next level and increasing your draft stock. But it's also, and something I've seen, being there 2 years in a row, it's something that really a lot of players, have a lot of fun with. I mean, I remember last year specifically, Marcus Davenport kind of joking around with the media. This year it's just, I could tell, guys like yourself and, Jalen Ferguson, who was just on the show, and, just all different guys, in this Senior Bowl class that, really just enjoyed it, appreciated it, and were happy to be there. And, I think that says a lot, and, it's a great event, obviously. But, moving on, you played at a pretty awesome school. I mean, you guys were constantly, a competitive, program and everything. But you played a lot of big games. What was your favorite game that you played in, and why was it your favorite?
And I'll have to say Clemson game. Just the opportunity to be able to play in the college football was something that I always dreamed of, and having the opportunity about coming back my senior year and, wanting to chase that and be able to get to the national championship. My favorite game was Clemson. It was an accomplishment of being able to be 12-0 and getting to that point. And also playing a really good team who I felt like was also a national championship contender team. So just having the opportunity to be on that stage and, just showcase all the hard work I've put in over the last 4 years. It was really a proud moment for me to be there and, do the best I could for my team.
Yeah, definitely. You're right. You guys had an incredible season, went 12-0, and you guys played against not only great teams, but, a lot of great players. Who would you say is probably, out of all the guys that you played last season, was the toughest player that you competed against?
I would say that the running back from Clemson was really good, with all the traits that he had as far as, being very athletic, being fluid in the way he ran and, having really good patience and just a smart football player overall and, being very fast. You don't often see that, especially from a young guy. So just playing him was fun because of all the great things that he do and, being able to challenge yourself, to reach to a higher level. And, every time I have an opportunity to play against high competition, I love it. I embrace it and, I want to come out on top and do the best I can. So it was really cool being able to play him and, just matching up against a really, really good running back.
Yeah, Travis Etienne is probably going to end up being a superstar. So I don't think that's a bad pick at all. Now, talking about yourself, you have a lot of skills, obviously, watching the film. I think your toughness really jumps out to me. You're very physical, and you're just an overall nasty linebacker. That's a good thing. But what would you say is your biggest strength?
Just being a leader. I think that I affect the locker room in a positive way by, just how I carry myself, around the facility and off the field. Just pushing other guys to become their best. That's my biggest thing, that I always, of course, push myself to be my best. But if I don't push the guys around me to reach their high potential, then I feel like I'm not doing my job. My biggest asset is just being a leader, being able to come in the locker room and, have that positive mindset and, push everybody to work hard each and every day to become their best, and that brotherhood and, continue to just play well was my biggest thing as a leader I want to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think definitely each and every locker room, it's important to have a guy with all the qualities that you just described. I think being a leader can really be important for an overall team morale and team production. And I certainly would agree with everything you said about, that being your biggest strength. What is something that you would consider your biggest weakness, or something that you really want to work on improving towards before the NFL draft and your first NFL season?
I want to continue my flexibility. I want to be able to become a guy who can show the NFL and scouts that I can run. That I'm a guy who has speed and can play all three downs, and have the hip mobility to move in quick directions, different directions really fast. So just continue to work on that and working on my body, and just continue to become an overall player. I want to be a guy who is considered an all three down linebacker that can do everything.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that's really the key. Every time I interview somebody, it's going to the NFL. It's always, I have my strengths, but this is what I need to improve on. I think that's a great mindset, coming into the league. And, everything, it's a lot faster. The best of the college is pretty much what you're getting day in and day out, in the starting group. And, I think that's a really good, mindset to have. But what has been your plan this offseason to get ready for such, a big leap? I know all different, prospects will go to either like Los Angeles or like Miami to train. Do you have anything specific you're doing this offseason? I'm training out in Phoenix, Arizona at Exos, which is a really good facility. A lot of great trainers and physical therapists that, know how to help you improve, So, like I said, I'm just working on my flexibility, and, just lifting and doing all the things necessary that I feel like I need to do to become the best version of me, when I put my skills on display in front of the NFL scouts.
And, as in regards to NFL scouts and everything, we got to ask, we're an LA Rams fan podcast. Have you met with the Los Angeles Rams yet?
Yes, I actually have met with them, and I expressed my feelings towards, how much I would love to be playing for LA Rams. That's actually my favorite team, and, I just love what the head coach and what the program as a whole is doing. The organization is doing a great job of having that brotherhood, which is something that I value a lot, which is why I went to Notre Dame. And, just the camaraderie that those guys play for each other, play to win, very smart, and a lot of guys are coachable and have a really coachable staff that, pushes those guys.
Well, that's awesome. We certainly love to hear that.
Like I said before, that I would love to be an LA Ram.
I think our listeners are gonna love that, Tavon. That is something else. We didn't know that. Obviously you agreed to come on the Downtown Rams podcast, but you failed to mention that you're a Rams fan. Like, come on, man.
I think I would freak out if you, since I'm just such a huge Irish fan, I think if you went to LA Rams, I think I'd be buying a Coney jersey. I just have to be real.
For sure. I like that.
So now you've kind of pushed this podcast in another direction. How long have you been a Rams fan for?
I want to say about 5 years now, maybe. I was a Dallas Cowboys fan for a while. And then I started loving the Rams. And then they, ever since then, I kind of been watching them and paying close attention. I'm happy for all the success that they're getting. And, like I said, I love to see how the brotherhood has grown over the past few years, and, bringing a lot of new guys and leaders who've got the locker room to start playing for each other. And you see it now that, they're having success because of that.
And I'm someone who's a big part of that success is someone who I'm sure you're very familiar with is Aaron Donald. What are your thoughts on him and, the thought of potentially being able to one day play alongside him?
He's a great guy, great athlete, a guy that I feel like pushes all the guys around him because of the way he works. He comes out there with the intensity and willing to work hard, and you can't ask for more for a guy that's athletic and, that great at football, who comes each and every day as the same guy and want to push his other teammates to get better, So that's something that I really love, and I want to be around. I want to be able to have a vet like him who comes in the building and works just as hard as me and pushing me to become, a better person on and off the field.
Yeah, I love that. I totally love that. I think Aaron is huge, and obviously this Rams team is heading for new heights. One last question with the Rams. You're a linebacker. What are your thoughts on this linebacker group? Because I know a lot of people knock them, but I feel like they have a lot of nice talent, and you could fit right in there.
Littleton did a great job for them. Him being able to play at a high level this year and, being a leader for that defense was huge for them. It's very important to have a leader in the middle of your defense who can, get along with all the guys, work extremely hard so all the guys kind of surround around him as well. I think he just did a terrific job at, doing his job and pushing other guys to get better, pushing himself. And, I believe he did a really good job this year at continuing to get better each and every week and, came out there and made the plays that he needed to make, which is important.
Yeah, and, you talk about leaders on defense and everything, and you certainly played, at Notre Dame with a lot of guys who were great on defense, Julian Love, Jerry Tillery, Drew Tranquil. Can you tell us a little bit about what each of them will bring to the table at the next level and what it was like playing alongside them?
They're all leaders. That's the most important thing. Those guys work extremely hard on their craft, and like I said before, that brotherhood. They love all their teammates. They want to be able to get their teammates to become better along with themselves, and they're selfless. They care more about the others around them, and just being the best version that they could be for themselves. And we have guys like that around you who support you, who pushes you to be a better person, to be a better football player. You just can't add some more. I'm extremely happy and blessed to just have guys surrounded by me who had the same values as me on and off the field, and just wanted to be the best they can be and want the best for their teammates as well.
I think that's really that's the key there, and it's no surprise that, Notre Dame continues to churn out talent such as yourself and Julian and Tillery and Tranquil. Last question for you, and we really appreciate you taking the time. If you had to, explain to our listeners, if they didn't know who you were, who is Tavon Coney?
Tavon Coney is a great kid, who always wants to learn, always wants to find ways to get better, be a better person, be a better football player, and really selfless, care about other people and, their well-being and how I can make their lives better. I'm a guy who wants to give back and, make things better for other people because of the support that I've had along the way. I feel like I owe that to the people out there who need me, who look up to me, the young kids who look up to me. I feel like I need to be there for them and continue to support, the younger youth. So I'm just a guy who always wants to find ways to get better and who's a leader, and want the best not only for myself but the others around me that I love. And, I'm just a very supportive guy who works extremely hard and, do everything I can for anyone and just continue to grow. That's the most important thing for me.
Yeah, I hear you there. We're going to be rooting for you, regardless of what team you go to. Anytime, you come on this podcast, we become a fan for life. So appreciate you taking the time, man. Best of luck, and would love to see you in Horns.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tavon.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. That was Tavon Coney. Yes, he is a Rams fan, so that was pretty awesome. For the record, Alexis and I did not know that going into that interview, so that was a genuine response that we both had.
I know. I was pumped to hear that. I mean, as a Notre Dame fan, if Coney came to the Rams, and especially knowing that he wants to come to the Rams, like I said, I would have to go buy a jersey.
That was really... Oh, I get you. I mean, I thought that was really the funniest part about this whole thing is that he wasn't like, oh, yeah, I like L.A. Or like, oh, yeah, the Rams would be an interesting spot or it'd be fun. Like, he seemed genuinely like, I want to go to L.A. Like, look, I mean, it's never guaranteed, but I don't know. I just, that was... that's some stuff, like, hold on to that. If he doesn't go to LA in the draft, if there is a spot that, say he's in free agency and he's looking where to sign, and the Rams are interested, Stuff like that is what you have to think about, because I get it. NFL is not like the NBA, where it's like, we're hearing during the NBA season that so-and-so wants to play for the Knicks and so-and-so wants to play for the Lakers.
Right.
But, like, that's something I always, like, keep in mind. Because, like, he was really hyped about the Rams. And then he talked about them. He talked about their linebacker group. He talked about, just the camaraderie and what they've built. And I don't know. It just, that wasn't like, oh, yeah, the Rams are cool. That was like, I really want to play for the Los Angeles Rams. So it's hard not to, want to do that. It's hard to argue against it, but I thought it was cool.
Right. And let me just say, he is such a genuine guy. I think anyone who heard that, it's really hard not to like this guy and to be rooting for him, no matter where he goes. Obviously want him to end up on the Rams, but, I'm definitely going to be a fan of his no matter where he plays.
Yeah, and I think this is really kind of the fun part about interviewing these prospects is, I'm kind of the same way. And you will get kind of heat for that homerism, if you will, but the fact of the matter is this guy took time out of his Friday night to come on, our podcast. I think that's huge, to do it for 20 minutes. I know how busy those guys' lives are, and how their lifestyle is kind of crazy, and how they're constantly in the gym and talking to their agent and scouts and all that. So it's pretty cool, and I always appreciate it, and I always remember who is somebody that came on the podcast, and I follow them. I mean, there are guys like obviously George Kittle's one, Ito Smith. I could name a ton of them. It's been a lot of fun interviewing these guys, and we're not going to stop. We have a lot, and honestly, like, we're thrilled because Alexis, tell them. We have so much in store.
We have a lot of fun stuff that we can't really say coming up, but it's definitely going to get pretty insane. Yeah.
No, it absolutely is. I can't wait. And just think, like, in what is it? On Sunday, we're going to be doing a live first round mock draft, and then Monday we're going to follow that up with a live second round mock draft. So if you guys haven't already seen the billboards of that and everything on, social media, there is your open invitation to go to downtownrams.com/podcast to check that out. But I think that's going to do it.
Yeah.
It's been a fun podcast. It was a good idea. Credit to Alexis. She was a driving force to push this thing out, and obviously we recorded 2 nights ago, but we're having fun recording these together. So figured just throw another one out there, and we have another great interview with another great prospect. So once again, I hope you guys enjoyed. For Jake Ellenbogen, she's Alexis Kraft, and this has been the Downtown Rams podcast. And we're signing out. Take it easy. Hello, listeners. Do you have a local business in Los Angeles? Are you looking for a podcast to sponsor it? Well, This is a podcast. You just listen to it. This is the Downtown Rams podcast, and we are open for all sorts of sponsorships. For details and any inquiries, be sure to email downtownrams@gmail.com, or you can DM us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.